Okay, for the second segment, the second game that aroused my followers was Jesse Kotton against, I'm gonna say just what the app said. That this name means drunk elephant. It's probably drunk Arvata. So we're gonna call him Arvata. Let's talk about the ends, which are actually very interesting because Arvata draw a very interesting end in my opinion. Okay, so in Arvata end we know that he has Popular, Wanted, Sanctuary, Island, and Skybird. I mean, it's not a bad end. Going first. A very redundant end. So let's go deep into the gameplay. So normal summon Popular is correct in my opinion in this scenario. Because there is not really a card that you want to discard with Witch in order to special summon Witch before. Also, again, we are playing against a 60 card pile. So I am not expecting playing a 60 card pile that he plays cards such as Impermanence or Veiler. There might be Gamma though, but like I don't think I would start suboptimally by starting with Witch in this specific scenario, considering this end. So let's delve deep into the gameplay. He decides to add Original. I would assume by the fact that he's adding Original that he's not playing the Temple of Snake Eye. Temple of Snake Eye, the field spell, is not a card being used by the OCG metagame. So he's not playing Oak or Temple. So considering this, there is also another information that we need to know about Arvata, is the fact that he's not playing Oak. It's crazy in my opinion, but like I'm not here to judge the decklist. So with two, like it decides to turn Popular into Linkuribo. And then he goes Popular, put itself back in the spell and trap zone, go for Original. Now, considering the fact that we know that he has Sanctuary and Island, he's gonna special summon Ash, and Ash is gonna add a copy of Ponix. And that's what he does, which is, in my opinion, correct. And then activates Wanted, which is also correct. And now, this is interesting. This is very interesting, actually, because I would actually draw in this position. And there is a reason why I would draw in this position. I would special summon Flamebirch before, actually. I would special summon Flamebirch using Ash effect, sacking those two, in order to special summon the Flamebirch. And then I would use Wanted to draw one more card. And then I would discard that card in order to summon Witch. Why do we need to do this sequence as I actually said? Because if you don't do that, you will have to surrender on the Sanctuary, which is the only good discard fodder or send fodder that he has. So if you don't do this sequence like I said right now, considering the fact that he has Witch, Sanctuary, Island, Ponix, and Skyburn, if you don't draw, the most optimal send is to use as a send fodder the Sanctuary and lose the Fire King Xyz interruption. And that's, in my opinion, what should be what he should do in this position, and he would have a very optimal board if he does so. But Okay, so he goes for wanted to put back the original, and also because he can set, obviously, the original of the witch. Then he decides to activate Sanctuary, and now he decides to sack the Sanctuary. And it's very interesting because he got punished by a missequence. Like, there is only one card that punishes him in this spot, because as I told you previously, you use Ash and Linkuribo in order to summon Flam, and then you draw. There is only one card that can punish the sequence, forcing him to send the Sanctuary. And that card is Flameberge from the end. He might have it already in hand. Maybe he might have it already in hand. Maybe draw the Sanctuary. Maybe draw the Sanctuary. But in my opinion, it's always correct to sack the Linkuribo and the Ash in order to summon Flameberge, and then Witch in order to discard the Ponyx to special summon itself. It is still correct, in my opinion, no matter what, to do Flameberge and Linkuribo, to Ash and Linkuribo into Flameberge, and then special summon the Witch. I think the Sanctuary is too good. I think the Sanctuary is too good to decide to get rid of it. And there is also one other thing that we need to take in consideration, is that Flameberge plus another body and the field spell is full combo, so you actually do not need the Linkuribo body on the board. Because yes, you are gaining a +1 in the process of sending Sanctuary, but you are losing the +1 later on in the combo. And I will basically show it to you in a minute. Like while we go, I will show you why this was not really a +1. So set original, link the two away in order to go for IP, which IP is correct, and then decides to summon two back with Flameberge, and IP and Linkuribo will go into Princess, and now Princess is gonna reborn the Flameberge. The Flameberge is gonna put back the IP. I mean, you can link it away before. That's totally correct, actually, to link those two away before. He decided to go for Humble Whale, which is also fine, actually, in my opinion, in this specific scenario. It's actually not a bad play. He decides to go for it. If he was doing it differently, in my opinion, like, he could have also established the Sunlight Wolf and lose the Humble Whale, but that's not the focus of my explanation. Go for the Garunix. Chain link 1 Humble Whale, chain link 2 Garunix to special summon itself. Special summon back the IP. He's trying to special summon back the IP because he wants a link to make Apollousa, which is fair. It's definitely a good play. But here we go. After he goes Garunix, pop Kirin special summons back the Ponyx. He decides to use those two in order to go into Sunlight Wolf, and then summons back the Linkuribo in order to use Sunlight Wolf effect to add back the Kirin. And now we see how the +1 of the Sanctuary ended up with a -1 on the board. So now the only, like, the most reasonable play in this scenario is to summon an Apollousa by 3, which could have been an Apollousa by 2, and keeping the Sanctuary on the board. Because as you can see right now, it does in fact have an extra body on the board that is gonna link away in order to make an Apollousa by 3 materials, which could have been an Apollousa by 2 materials, and keep this Sanctuary on the board. The sequence should be changed, obviously, because obviously the sequence would be different, and it would have the same amount of interruptions, but with one less negation of Apollo, but the Sanctuary on the board, that in my opinion is super powerful against the Tearlaments deck. So decides to go for an Apollousa and then Flameberge in order to establish an IP in the spell and trap zone, but he did this. He decided to establish an Ambler Whale in the spell and trap zone. Now, first of all, I think it's crazy. And when I saw it, I was like, it has to be wrong. I have analyzed this position and I understood why he did that. I have understood why he did that. He wants to go Chainlink 1 Kirin that he has in hand that he added off Wolf, Chainlink to Flameberge, summon back the Ambler. Is that so important to do this? To be honest, it's not. You can just go Flameberge to summon the IP, and then later on in the turn you can go Kirin on the Flameberge. And they have extra bodies on the board. I don't think this was necessary. I think this was a mistake. I think it's an 100% a mistake in this position. And if the Flameberge gets stopped, you will lose the Ambler Whale for the rest of the game. I mean, for the rest of the turn, I guess. And he did that just to have a fire fodder to pop with Kirin, and I don't think it's necessary. I actually think it's counterproductive, because you will actually clog your own field. If actually your this play resolves, you will actually clog your entire board. Anyways, that's basically the reason of why I went for it. And there is also another thing. Against Tearlaments, you actually want to have the IP in this spell and trap zone, because for Tearlaments there are some situations in which they can bait the Apollousa, and by forcing the Apollousa, if they have a shuffler, they can deal with the IP in the graveyard using the shuffler. If you try to end on an Ambler Whale on the board. So in my opinion, against Tearlaments, it is actually always correct to have an IP in the spell and trap zone, because the punishes are way less than they would be if the IP was in the graveyard and the Ambler Whale was on. Set 2 cards and pass. Now, we need to understand that Jesse knows basically both of the cards. The first one is original, that was set by the Witch. The second one has to be Skyburn because Ponyx did not activate. Ponyx effect on the field was not used, which means this one has to be Skyburn and this one has to be original. So considering those things, we need to see how Jesse manages to play his own tool. Now, in the Jesse end, we know that he has King Sarcophagus, Privy Karma, Call by the Grave, Droplet, Walls, which is basically the King Sarcophagus field spell, and Rhino. Okay? So, he wants basically to try to clear this Apollo before he normal summons Rhino, because Rhino is his most important push in this game. Activate Sarcophagus. The activation of Sarcophagus gets met by the activation of Fire King Avatar Kirin. The issue obviously with this line that he went for, that Arvata went for, is the fact that he has to shotgun everything on the first bait. The first bait that tries to force Apollo forces Arvata to basically commit every of his interruptions on the board. That's what happens. So usually the Fire King end board is very strong because it creates 3 layers of interruptions. One on the board, one in the graveyard, and the Kirin in hand that helps to pushes into disruptions or board breakers. The way that was played by Arvata is that he committed a line of play that requires him to commit all the 3 layers on the board. Now, on the activation of Sarcophagus, shotgun the Kirin, chain the Flameverge, and here he gets met with a droplet. The droplet is gonna pitch Walls and the 3B Karma. The Flameverge and the Apollosa gets negated. The Kirin pop the Flameverge. Jesse has a Call by the Grave and Rhino in hand. He decides to not Call by the Grave the Flameverge because he knows what's gonna happen. Now let me explain you guys why he decided to not Call by the Grave the Flameverge, which in my opinion is very correct. This Ambler Whale has 2 ways to get out of the spell and traps. One is with Flameverge, and one is with second effect of Kirin that can pop a card on the board. So he can go Garonix, pop Kirin, Kirin effect, pop Ambler Whale, and Ambler Whale can trigger in order to special summon IP and establish an SP on the board. So this Ambler Whale has 2 ways to get out of the spell and trap zone. The first way was stopped by the droplet that we have in Jesse's graveyard. Now we need to stop the Kirin that's gonna attempt to get the Ambler Whale out of the spell and trap zone. Jesse recognizes this choke point and he decides to let the Flameverge go. The Flameverge summon pop, summon Ash, and Garonix effect is being used. Now, why did he not stop the Garonix effect? I told you guys that he knows both the backgrounds. He knows that one is original and was setted off, which the other one is basically Skyburn because the Arvata guy did not search with points. And Skyburn could potentially pop a Kirin to pop a card on the board. By triggering the Kirin in the graveyard, we get any Fire King monster on the board, and then he can pop the Ambler Whale, which triggers in order to special summon back the IP later on. So again, Jesse recognized this possibility that the opponent had in order to win the game, and he decides to let the Garonix go. And also because there is no Sanctuary on the board, so there is no possibility of him turning to level 8 into an interruption. So Kirin effect in order to summon, and now we see the call by that he waited all this time just to get rid of a Kirin in the graveyard. At this point we only know that Arvata is an unknown card in the end, and I will spoiler you guys. The card is MAXX. And in my opinion, that's why, possibly, probably, he did not discard to summon the witch. I mean, he had to discard the Ponyx, I guess. That's why I think he sent the sanction. Maybe he was not sure that he had enough bodies on the board. Anyways, that card is MAXX. The call by on the Kiri. And now, normal summon Rhino. Obviously, now the interruptions, there are only 2 interruptions left for our Arvata guy, and one is Princess in the Grave, and the second one is Skyber. None of those are good against a normal summon Rhino, which means that this resolves, Alphenist resolves, Chain MAXX obviously, as I already told you guys, and hit effect on the summon, Chain Link 1, and we see Tearlaments Kashtira, Chain Link 2. And now, in my opinion, we see the misplay that actually costed Arvata the game against Jesse Kotton. He decided to use a Skyburn on the Kit Kalos. The issue with this is that Jesse Kotton, right now in the graveyard, has a 3v Karma that was never used. The issue about 3v Karma is the fact that 3v Karma adds Perlereno. The issue about Perlereno is that Perlereno deals with the board of Arvata if it goes uninterrupted. So, in my opinion, it is correct to deal with the Kit Kalos, but I think that is correct to deal with the Kit Kalos with the Princess. There is also a potential punish, and that punish is mill 5 into a Shuffler. And the Shuffler are Keldo or Modora that can deal with the Princess in the graveyard, turning an interruption a 0. So Skyburn gets chained to the kit, hit effect in order to mill. We do not see any Shuffler, likely for Arvata, but we do see Salik, and we do see Destrudo. Destrudo is not live right now, but the Salik is gonna add Sharon. Sharon is the name that we did not use yet. Why is Jesse gonna add Sharon? Because Salik is gonna add Sharon, then he goes 3v Karma add Perlereno. Perlereno add the second Sharon. Sharon effect, pitch the second Sharon from the end, special summon itself, mill 3 cards, Sharon effect in the graveyard. Sharon effect in the graveyard is gonna basically clear the entire Arvata, like the entire board of Arvata by dealing with the island on the board. Chain 3v Karma to the Salik. Add Perlereno, add Sharon. Perlereno adds another Sharon. And now we see the Sharon effect pitch the other Sharon. Mill 3 cards, Sharon effect in the graveyard in order to summon Kaleidoart. And now, this is super interesting, Kaleido effect, Chain Link 1 Perlereno on Kaleido, Chain Link to Kaleido, Kaleido effect. So, Arvata decides to go for Princess in order to pop the Sharon, and I think this was, at this point, after all the misplays that he committed, correct, because Jesse Kotton has a Destrudo in the graveyard. Now, we don't want to give Jesse Kotton another monster on the board, so he needed to go for like the Princess 9 in order to pop the Sharon that was previously used. So Kaleido effect is gonna trigger, Kaleido is gonna send the Tearlaments meta noise, that is actually not really played in terrorist tier, so I don't think the Arvata guy expected this. Meta Noise effect is gonna add back Tearlaments Kashtira, and now Tearlaments Kashtira in order to banish the Salik from the graveyard and mill. Now, this is not like right now before milling with Tearlaments Kashtira, there is no winning position yet, just yet. But why he decides to go for Tearlaments Kashtira? I mean, it was not only the only good option, but there is a reason. Any extender is basically game. Now, there are the most, like the better one, obviously we are talking about a possible Rainbow Bridge. We are talking about actually any Horus monster, because if he goes for any Horus monster, he can use, like he can summon the Horus monster from the graveyard, and by checking the Arvata graveyard, we will see that he has a Witch in the graveyard. Why is Witch so important for Jesse Kotton in this scenario, and why is going for the mill? To mill a possible Horus or to mill a possible extend. Guys, if you know about Zombie Vampire, it has a very peculiar effect. That any monster that's possessed by your opponent becomes a level 8 for the exist summon of this guy. So if Jesse Kotton, if he mills any Horus, special summon the Horus, goes into dark using Kaleido Art and the Tearlaments Kashtira, he can summon on the board the Witch that for the exist summon of Zombie Vampire with another Horus will be considered level 8. And that's basically why any good mill will be good. Any extender will be good in terms of Horus, in terms of the Rainbow Bridge, in terms of, in this case, Dotscaper. Not only a monster that turns itself into a dark monster, which is Linguribo, but it's also a 11-1 monster that will allow Jesse Kotton to unlock an extender that was in his graveyard, which is basically Destrudo. So this Dotscaper allowed Jesse to have two different dark monsters on the board. So Destrudo is getting activated by targeting the Dotscaper, and now we link away the Dotscaper into Linguribo. Linguribo and the Tearlaments Kashtira into Dark. Dark summons the IP, and now there are two possible lines. And one of them is going into Curious by using the Kaleido IP and Destrudo. The best one is using those three for the Curious. Why? Why it has to be those three? Because if the opponent has any way to stop the Curious, for example with an Ash Blossom, Jesse Kotton can simply enter in battle phase, crash the Dark into the Princess, crash the Curious into the Princess. With Dark he can add a copy of Sharon that's still in his deck. Basically, if he gets stopped on the Curious, he can crash the Dark, crash the Curious, add back Trust, add Sharon to the end, use Trust in order to go for Foolish Goods in order to go Rainbow Bridge. Rainbow Bridge can add the Tortoise and can add the Walls from the deck to the end, the second copy of the Walls. Use the Walls in order to add Imseti. Imseti discards from the end, draw one card, add the Sarcophagus, discards both the cards in order to establish three Horus monsters on the board and keep playing with the Zombie Vampire. So he's doing all of this in order to establish, no matter what, a zombie vampire. That will help him to deck out his opponent faster and to win the game under MAXX. So now he decides to go into using IP, Kaleido and Destrudo into Curious. Curious effect resolves, likely, sends Rainbow Bridge in the graveyard, use Curious effect to mill 3 more cards, chain Rainbow Bridge because obviously we don't want to mill the Tortoise. And now we add the Crystal Beast Tortoise and a copy of Waltz. Now mills 3 and one of them is Jet Synchron, which is a good extender, I would say. Sarcophagus to pitch the Tortoise, Sarcophagus to pitch the field spell in order to send 2 different Horus. You don't want to send Imseti, because Imseti, you have 3 copies of Imseti, while you have 1 copy of the other bad Horus in your deck, and you are gonna try to establish right now a vampire line that will mill 4 cards from the top of your deck, and you are more likely to mill an Imseti than to mill a different Horus. So special summons both the Horus. Both the Horus will turn into a zombie vampire. And as I told you guys previously, the text says if you use a monster with a level that's owned by your opponent for an exceed summon of this card, treat it as a level 8. We are gonna use now the effect of zombie vampire, which again likely resolves, and with that we special summon Gamma. Gamma was a very interesting mill because now Gamma is allowing us to go into a Baron de Fleur by special summoning an Horus from the graveyard. And if we were not milling the Gamma, you would say, Nash, but like, what does he do then if he doesn't mill the Gamma? It's very simple. He's gonna go simply for an Apollousa. Entering battle phase, decides to crush the Curious, and now he goes for the most insane play that we saw, one of the most insane play that we saw from this amazing player during this tournament. Crush Curious adds card destruction, main phase 2. Activate card destruction with only 7 cards left in Arvata deck. Chain Ash Blossom on card destruction. Chain Baron de Fleur to negate the Ash Blossom. Card destruction resolves, and the game is over, giving to Jesse Kotton another insane win during this tournament. I hope you guys appreciated this video. Leave in the comment section down below your thoughts about this game. If you saw a better line, please let me know. There is always to learn in this amazing game, and I wish to see you guys next time. Okay, did you guys like it?